All right, gamers, welcome. Yeah, we're gonna start with that. We have obviously hello, Master Duel. I have played the Duelist Cup last weekend. If you were watching, of course you know about this already. I finished not quite in top 100 because I also stopped a few hours before it ended, because to me it was kind of like I don't really care that much about making top 10 or top 100. I just want to do my best, and if it's good enough to win, then that's awesome. If not, then like I didn't feel like grinding for 4 more hours just to get like a top 100 or top 50 placement or whatever. So I ended up 119th with barely over 50,000 points. But I don't feel too bad about it, and we're gonna talk about how the event felt for me this time around, what my expectations were going in, how it turned out, what the format was like, what I would like to see on an upcoming Forbidden and Limited list, and then also some of the other things. But of course, first things first, a huge shout out to Ryan, Pack, and Stellar, who reached enormous point values in this one once again. I mean, Ryan, of course, has won multiple of these in the past. Amazing Master Duel player.
It's
but
the
also
same problem
Pack,
with Remember.
mostly, usually more of a TCG duelist, but literally one win behind Ryan on the leaderboard here. Literally
the
one
forecast
win.
is quite a
For
lot.
1,000 points would have put Pack in first place, and he would have been able to qualify
I feel
for
like in
Worlds.
Diva format where every deck
So
was
incredibly
ever so
close
slightly
towards
more
the end.
aggressive than usual.
But also Stellar, who I believe was actually
Just worked
first
fine
place
enough.
for a long
But really
period of
doesn't
time,
feel like it's enough.
over the last couple of hours. But then was
Especially
overtaken
since
by Pack and
Prison
Ryan. Of course,
is
amazing
out now and
performance by
Mono
all
White
three of
Towel can
these.
just use this, honestly.
And of course,
And it's
we're
way
gonna see
better.
Ryan back at Worlds
Unfortunately, I
next
can't
year,
use Remember
which was
Prison.
kind of a given, to be honest. At some point, he
Diva.
was gonna qualify no matter what. If it wasn't through a Duelist Cup, then probably through the regional qualifier.
Unless I change my
yeah.
thingy, but there aren't that many pieces
As
that
I
let you
had
get away with
announced
using multiple
previously,
of the same
I
color. It
played
really sucks.
99% Draco Tail, I would say. There was a very short period of time during the second day that I tried to mess around with some Mitsurugi,
right now.
like more pure Mitsurugi. But I didn't really feel like it was any better than Draco Tail, because I switched over to Mitsurugi when in a period where Draco Tail wasn't really working well for me. I wasn't losing many points, but I also wasn't really climbing. I think that was one of the problems during day 2, is like I started day 2 at like 20 something thousand, and then throughout the day I couldn't really get anything going. Day 2 was definitely the worst day for me. And then I tried some Mitsurugi, and Mitsurugi also couldn't really. I didn't really lose many points with Mitsurugi either, but I also didn't gain any.
It's a bad deck losing against a worse deck.
You should switch to a higher ceiling deck, not just the same ceiling. See, that's the thing, right? This is one of the things that we're going to talk about in retrospect of this Duelist Cup, in hindsight, and so on and so forth. But
that is crazy.
I actually don't feel bad about this, because I did say literally on the Friday when the tournament started, and even beforehand, I did say if the way to qualify for Worlds in this Duelist Cup is to play a higher ceiling combo deck like Malice or Onomat Ryziel or whatever, if that's the way to qualify, then I'm not going to qualify. That is what I said on Friday, and that kind of ended up being true. I mean, I think Pack played some Draco Tail, but Ryan played a lot of Onomat Ryziel and Malice, and also Mitsurugi Ryziel, which is also more of a combo deck than pure Ryziel. And like, I've told myself in the past, like one key factor for, or at least the way I see it, one key factor for me to be able to even compete in Duelist Cups for this amount of time, in only 3 days, right? You have to play so much Master Duel. I can only do it if I play a deck that I like. I cannot bring myself to play, I don't know, Tenpai for 72 hours. I cannot bring myself to play Onomat Ryziel or Malice for 72 hours. I cannot do that. If that is the way to qualify for Worlds, I'm not qualifying for Worlds, and so that's why I don't feel bad for my deck choice. You know, I knew that there was a chance that Malice was the better deck, or that another
Something
deck was
I
the better
haven't
deck, but I'm not
given
gonna
a try
I'm
yet
not gonna
is
play
just
it.
using the new
I
sash.
cannot play it for this long. I hate
I
the
considered
gameplay
it, but I
provides.
forgot
I
about
hate
it
playing
until
against
now,
it
until
even
I
more.
decided to play.
But like I just
Sash a
don't
little while ago
enjoy
with the new Aquino thingy.
this type of
I'm giving
gameplay
it
for this
another
long,
try.
and so I didn't want to do it. And so I don't feel bad at all. And I do think I'm happy to see that Pack was able to perform so well with Draco Tail, because I believe Pack posted on Twitter that he was using a couple of different decks, but mostly Draco Tail is what he said, which is really nice. And I was also really happy to see. Let me search for Pack's tweet real quick. Pack also posted his deck list, and I was very happy to see that it was basically the exact same Draco Tail deck list that I was using for almost the entire weekend, which we can talk about in a second as well. But Pack posted this.
This is a really good
I played
hand.
Malice and Ryzeal to get through the early rounds, then Draco Tail for 90% of the run. 5 rotating
I also
engine
think
flex spots based on the Duelist Cup meta. Droll,
Wishin should
Purulia,
definitely
Meows,
not be a
Lancia,
card
Nibli,
I'm
Wood
using.
Veiler. Most likely
I feel
second
like.
overall. Try harder next time.
But from what
and
I've
this
seen so far, this one's
is
the
the deck
best.
list that
Maybe
he
I'll
posted. This is the
give
skeleton,
everything a
where like the last 5 cards are
reevaluation
non-engine
later.
he rotated around. This is 50 cards between main and extra deck, that exactly the same cards that I ended up playing as well towards the end. Like I was literally this was my list that we're gonna take a look at in a second. But I played like some bells
That
or
is an
nibs or
illegal deck.
veilers or whatever as the last couple of slots, right? I ended up playing exactly this basically exclusively on day 3. In my list in day 3, hold up, I can show you mine towards the end. In my list towards the end, the missing 5 cards.
Should have grabbed more.
I played 1 Purulia because there was a disgusting amount of Ryzeal decks, and Purulia is also pretty good against Malice. I played 1 Purulia, 2 Veilers, and 2 Nibs. But the other cards are all exactly the same. I'm really happy that this is the deck that ended up. This is the best Draco Tail version that ended up doing well in the Duelist Cup. And I'm really happy about that, because
we have 2 right now.
You know, I might not be the best or
Putting
most
these in the
dedicated
bottom
combo
would be
player
pretty
out
good.
there, but I feel like I do know my theory behind like the mid-range stuff. And I did say the entire time, like, hey, if you're playing Spenta and Magista stuff in Draco Tail, it's still it's a good deck. But I think realistically, I think you have the wrong idea of what you're trying to achieve with your deck. Like if you're trying to play a higher ceiling deck, you should be playing Onomat, Ryzeal, or Malice. Like if you're trying to play a combo deck, play a combo deck. If you want to play Draco Tail, then you should, in my opinion, you should lean into the advantages of the deck. You should lean into what this deck does best, which is ignore Droll and Lockbird. Don't suffer from Fuvalos or Maxi at all. And just play a grindy mid-range playstyle. That's what Draco Tail does. If you don't like that, if you think that sort of end board is too weak and you want to play something that auto wins when it goes first, then play Ryzeal or play Malice. But I don't think Draco Tail is the best combo deck. I don't think it's very smart to play Magistus Draco Tail or whatever, you know? I think Branded Draco Tail was valid because Branded Draco Tail is kind of the same deck as this one. The only difference is like, well, you cut 3 Cartesias, you play 2 Branded Fusion, you play 1 Albaz, and then you also have to play the Frixel, which in my opinion is just a bad trade-off. Because well, Branded Fusion is an amazing card. Cartesia also is an amazing card, because what Cartesia offers you is it's also a starter unless you draw 0 Draco Tail monsters. But I mean, you play so many, you're probably gonna have one. So you don't have to play Albaz.
It's Maludu, and I don't personally play all that many
starter,
copies of Maludu.
and
I play a lot of the spellcasters and not that many of the dragons.
To draw,
because a lot of the dragons
so
are primarily
in this
engine
version of the
pieces
deck, you
more
have
so
no
than
bad
anything.
draws, basically.
Garnets, in other words.
Because all of the Cartesias,
Not that they're bad
there's
to
no
draw,
engine
it's
requirements
just
to play Cartesia.
they're awkward to draw.
Whereas in the branded version, you have engine
Draco Tail's
requirements.
biggest problem is how
And
it feels. It's really
and
high
I think
rolly.
that's
You either
the
open
reason
5
why
mana
this
or
is the
you
best
don't.
version of this deck in
There's
Master
really
Duel.
no in
Because in
between
Master Duel
sometimes.
there's 3 Fuva and 2 Maxis and a lot of Drolls in a lot of decks, and this deck is the deck that exploits that the best. And of course, I had games where
Let's
I
keep
went
that in the
first, I
NR.
made my board, and I lost because my opponent's deck was able to push through it with like red reboot and a strong engine
Shit,
hand or
man,
whatever.
that
Like that
sucks.
happens. Yes, it does happen. It does not auto win going first. But that at the same time is kind of what makes it appealing to me as a player. This is the kind of playset that I like. I don't like
Let's bottom
I
that.
don't like making a board that my opponent looks at and then just presses the surrender button, which I understand that that's a good thing in terms of the competition, but it's not a good thing for my mental when I go through a 72-hour tournament and I never have to actually like it's kind of weird. I understand when you say like, oh well, it's a competition, you should be trying to try and achieve that, but this is something I've learned about myself in the past in Duelist Cups is like if I don't enjoy the deck that I'm playing, then I'm not going to be able to like I will crash out. I will crash out over the course of 72 hours if I just play a deck that is so dull that like you summon a monster, your opponent scoops, and your opponent goes first, and you scoop, or you get max seat, then you scoop, and that's a dynamic that I simply I simply cannot deal with. So I'm happy to see that Pack was able to perform with this deck at least. But yeah. In terms of my own takeaway from this entire thing, I'm happy to report that despite its flaws that we're gonna get into
Oh,
in
no,
a
wait, that's gonna
second,
be the thing I enter charge
this
with.
Duelist Cup
Oh,
was
well.
probably my favorite one in a long time. And I will say that the bar for that is basically on the floor. But it's still something, it's still something because I mean, previous Duelist Cups, I don't have to tell you, whenever I streamed it, you guys saw it, right? Like the 10 Pi Duelist Cup, the Snake Eye Duelist Cups, the full power Malice Duelist Cups, the bar was pretty freaking low for this Duelist Cup to be better. But basically, the thing that kept me alive, the thing that kept me sane throughout this Duelist Cup was just the Draco Tail mirror matches. The Draco Tail mirror matches were awesome. Like the Draco Tail mirror match is for an enjoyer of grindy and a little bit slower Yu-Gi-Oh than what some of these combo decks are doing. The Draco Tail mirror was just it was so good for my soul. I just absolutely loved it. And so even though I was going up against Malice and Onomat Ryziel way more than Draco Tail, I think overall, having those bits of Draco Tail mirror matches in between was just what made this overall better for me. And that's why I think my mental throughout the 3 days was overall better. I think the reason why I didn't perform as well is that my prep just wasn't as good as it needed to be. Because I think doing well in a Duelist Cup, and I am not going to blame bad luck on this one because there were periods where I got very unlucky, but at the same time, I think it is pretty foolish to blame bad luck for Duelist Cup performances when people like Ryan are out here reaching 80,000 points, and not just one time, but consistently over the course of multiple Duelist Cups. So I'm not going to sit here and say like, oh, I just got unlucky. I could have easily won this one if I didn't have that one bad streak on day 2 or whatever. Because I mean, luck is a factor, but there's no way it could be responsible for a 30,000 point difference, and Ryan is able to do it every time, So I think the reality is, if I reflect on my own performance, I think I'm pretty proud of my third day this time. I am pretty proud of how I played on day 3. But I do notice that like even though my play on on day 1 and day 2 was solid, if I think back to some of those moments, I think there are definitely moments where I played cleaner towards the end of the tournament. And I think that is basically if this tournament was to happen again, I think like right now, I think with the experience from this Duelist Cup, I think I could do even better. I think my play towards the end of the tournament was a lot cleaner, and I also think my deck list towards the end of the tournament was a lot cleaner, because in the beginning I was still kind of like messing around. You know, should I play Nib or should I not play Nib? Should I play Bell or should I play Veiler? Should I play 2 Cartesia? Should I play 3 Cartesia?
Damn.
Should I play 1 Pan? Should I play 2 Pan? Those are all things that were all kind of like questions in my head when I started playing the tournament on Friday. And then towards Sunday, I think I landed on a list that was basically exactly what it needed to be. But realistically, I should have had that on Friday already, probably. Like, I played, I don't know, maybe 400 games in this Duelist Cup. I have no idea how many, probably around 400. Maybe more than that even.
Ah, sure.
But realistically speaking, I probably should have had that many games beforehand already as preparation, which I didn't. I didn't have, which, you know, it's just a matter of my November was pretty busy, and that, but then maybe I could have locked in harder in December to prepare more. But yeah, the red reboots were so rough. The red reboots were rough, but at the same time, I did figure out ways to beat red reboot a lot more consistently on Sunday, for example, because a lot of games, I don't know if you've noticed this, because I talked on Sunday, I had the mic and face cam on, but one thing I did a lot more on Sunday was, if I had the choice between, and this happened a lot, if I had the choice between
I think I
setting
should
all
have just
3
gone for
traps,
3/3 and drew 2
or
cards.
I had the choice between 2 traps and a Mululu on the board, or 2 traps and a Femena in hand, I would always pick the one that had monster interruption, right? I would always prioritize getting to a Mululu on board or a Femena in hand, or both, or a Pan in rotation, so that I can pop and survive the turn if they reboot, rather than getting all 3 traps. Of course, in an ideal world, you get all of that, right? You get 3 traps and Femena, usually, and seals if things go right. But you know, so I did find adjustments to that, but realistically, those are all things that maybe I should have been aware of beforehand already. So yeah, I think the prep could have been better, and I could have played and I could have probably prepared better and then achieved higher points. Yeah, but I'm happy to report that my mental this time was probably at its best ever. You know, of course there was moments where I got frustrated, but I never crashed out and like played stupid decks or other stuff. Like I stuck to my plan, which was just play the deck I like, play Draco Tail or Mitsurugi, which I did for a very short period of time. But then I realized, hey, no, this Mitsurugi deck is not working as well as the Draco Tail deck. I just had some bad luck with Draco Tail. That doesn't mean I have to switch the deck. So I went back to Draco Tail, and I stuck with it. I kept making improvements to the list based on the meta I was seeing, and I just stuck with it, and I improved my play with Draco Tail throughout the 3 days. And you know, I started day 3 with literally 30,000 points because my day 2 was so bad, and then I went all the way up to 50 with Draco Tail, which was pretty cool. I think I'm pretty proud of my play on day 3. And so I think I learned a lot this Duelist Cup about myself, about how to maybe do better in future Duelist Cups, and I think that's all that mattered. Or all that matters is being happy with the performance you did, and taking something away for next time. And I think I did. I think I can safely say I do both of those things. I'm happy with how I played. And that's the thing, right? The realization that I could have or should have prepared better is not necessarily a negative thing for me, because there's a positive thought in all of that, because there's a promise in there. Like I can safely say, if I prepare better, I can do better, right? And that's a good takeaway. That's something you can take and improve next time. Where like realistically, I just have to put in a shit ton of work to win a Duelist Cup if I ever want to do it, you know? And that's something I definitely didn't do it this time. I didn't like sit there and play like 400 games of Draco Tail before this Duelist Cup, which maybe if I did that, maybe if I grinded ranked mode more, like for example, I did make Master 1, but I barely played in Master 1. Like I'm on 1500, you know? There's people every month that are climbing to the 1800s or 1700 something at least, you know, like the current cutoff for top 10 is 1780. There's people that play way more Master Duel at the moment than I do, you know, which is fair enough because I do a lot of other things as well. But it's something that I can take away and improve if I want to do well in another Duelist Cup, and maybe I will. Basically, that's what I'm getting to. Is overall, I enjoyed my Duelist Cup run, and if there's ever another format where there's a deck that I enjoy, I think I will just sit down, lock the fuck in, and practice a lot more before it starts, so that I have my deck list and my play already figured out, and then I think we can avoid some unnecessary losses. So yeah. All right, now to the things that were not so good with this Duelist Cup, maybe. Now, here are the decks that Ryan won with. Mitsurugi Ryziel, sure, deck has a little bit too much ceiling for my liking. The other two decks, which are by far, and when I say by far, I mean by far, not even close. The two decks I played against the most in this Duelist Cup, Malice and Onomat Ryziel, which are also two decks that Ryan used for his climb. In parts, you know, played some Malice, played some Onomat Ryziel, played some Mitsurugi Ryziel. These two decks, once again, this is my opinion, but I think a lot of people would agree with me, are miserable to play against. Malice is miserable to play against, and Onomat Ryziel, honestly, Onomat Ryziel might be more cringe than Malice. Onomat Ryziel might be a more cringe strategy than Malice. That deck, literally, every single card in this deck is just like summon level 4, search level 4, make rank 4, specials more level 4s, whatever. And there's the amount of crazy shit that this deck can do is insane. Right. Like I've gotten turn skipped by Onomat Ryziel. Ryan's list doesn't have this, but a lot of the others did. Where is it? Does someone here have it? This one does. This one does not have it. That kind of
sucks.
This is rank 3 Stellar, also Onomat Ryziel. This is rank 4 Global, also Onomat Ryziel. This one plays Heavy Slump to deal with Maxi and other Charmies, which is insane behavior. I got Heavy Slumped as well. Here, rank 5 Malice. Rank 7 Malice. Rank 9 Malice. Rank 10 Draco Tail, shout outs, base individual. But yeah, that's the top 10. Malice, 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 Onomat, Onomat, one Draco Tail, a second Draco Tail by pack, and then we've got Ryan with Mitsu Ryziel, Malice, and Onomat. Like it's literally, and that's I guess where I was disappointed, and also where I was wrong. I thought this was going to be the Draco Tail Duelist Cup, and I was wrong. I underestimated the power level that these decks are at in Master Duel severely. You know, I thought, you know, let's go and play some Draco Tail now. Finally, that Red Ransom is banned and stuff like that. And I mean, I kind of saw it coming.
A lot of people thought Malice was finally gonna be gone.
I didn't want to believe it.
Oh, how wrong they were.
I commented Challenger Cups before this, and it was always Malice that was doing well. You know, Malice was doing super well in tournaments left and right. And I was like, nah, it's fine. I can just play Draco Tail. And I mean, Draco Tail was fine, but it was not the best deck for this Duelist Cup. Those were obviously, looking at the results here, all the people, or most of the people that basically really wanted to win and perform as best as they can, they played Malice and Onomat Ryziel. And both of those decks are just the most miserable combo slop imaginable. If their combos resolve going first, they just win. no exception. And Red Reboot being super popular also didn't quite help my enjoyment of this tournament, because I was trying to play Draco Tail and I got Red Rebooted a shit ton. When in reality, like, I mean, Red Reboot does kind of work against Malice a little bit, but realistically, it was just there to beat Draco Tail. Yeah, the Onomat decks literally, like, pick your poison. Some of them I encountered people doing Protoss Lock. I encountered people doing a literal turn skip with some. It was some. You need like a pendulum exceed rank 4 that puts itself into the pendulum scale. Like, yeah, it's Drident Ooze or whatever is what it's called. Then they make a Ptolemaeus with, I have no idea how many materials. It's like you make you summon. Okay, hear me out. You summon 2 level 4s to make the Ooze. The Ooze goes into the pendulum scale. Then you summon 5 more level 4s to make a Ptolemaeus, the Teller Knight thingy. Then you activate plugin to attach another material to the Ptolemaeus, and then the Ooze from the scale can attach itself, and then you have 7 materials, and that thing has an effect to detach 7 and skip the opponent's turn. Which, just the fact that deck is able to do that is completely insane. Because they are not doing just that, right? They are not doing just that. You might think like, oh, that's a lot of level 4s they can summon. But at least they're not doing other things to protect their combo. No, they summon more level 4s than that. They do all that with protection from Ryziel Cross. They do all that. They can summon Infernal Flame Banshee beforehand. They summon Ryziel Duo Drive. They summon Ryziel Detonator, whatever. Then they clear their board by sending stuff with like with Node Ryziel or whatever, so they have room for more rank 4s.
Oh,
like,
right.
that deck is insane.
Yeah, this is fine.
It summons, like, basically every single level 4 in this deck is summoned in that combo, except for Mulcharmy. But every other level 4 hits the board at some point. It summons the entire deck onto the field, basically, and also the entire extra deck. I've in my breaks, I watched Judeo play some Onomat Ryziel sometimes. Like, also after I stopped streaming, I didn't go to bed right away. I watched some of the people that were still streaming their runs. I saw Judeo deck out people under Mulcharmies by summoning the entire extra deck on turn 1. That happened to me as well, but by Adignister and Cyber Slop, where I got decked out by Adignister once off of 1 card. They summoned 1 Adignister, I maxed, I died. Because they summoned Omni Negates before I drew my hand traps, and I got decked out. Straight up. 1 of the stupid yellow Adignisters, I got decked out. I sometimes had too many level 4s and not enough space. No, I know. That was something that I watched Judeo play 1 game where the problem genuinely was he was trying to, like, deck out the opponent, but the problem was that he had too many monsters. So he had to, like, make room. He had to overlay 2 rank 4s for Eclipse Twin, then get the Eclipse Twin into the graveyard, then shuffle it back into the deck with the graveyard effect of the reptile Onomat, this thing, and then make it again to, like, deck out the opponent. It's insane. This deck is insanity. Like, yeah. So essential, and then also hand trapping this deck with anything that isn't a Mulcharmy is impossible. Straight up impossible. Like, yes, if you imperm an Ice Ryziel and they don't have an extender, you might win, but, like, you cannot. Yeah, okay, Droll can also work, but Droll is horrible against Malice, so that was not a card I wanted to play in Draco Tail. But, like, they activate Dodo Warrior in hand. There's no amount of hand traps that realistically saves you from it. Like, there's literally no amount of hand traps that saves you from it, because Dodo Warrior summons 2 level 4s, makes a rank 4 without normal summoning, and if it is detached from the rank 4 as material, it also searches an extender. You can Veiler the Dodo Warrior to make it a level 6, but then you instantly explode if they have a normal summon in their hand full of level 4s. You instantly explode. So this deck basically anything that is a quote unquote fair hand trap, anything Valor, Imperm, Ash, whatever, you are literally just checking, do you have one extender? And if they have one extender, there's no amount of hand traps you can draw. There's no amount of hand traps you can draw to stop this deck if it draws like a normal summon and extender or whatever. There's no way. And what's the alternative? Getting turn skipped. So if you or like, I mean, no matter, it doesn't matter what they go for, it's all auto win. It is all auto win. This deck, if this deck resolves the combo, you lose the game. They have so much disruption, no matter what version they play. It is disgusting. It is genuinely disgusting. And I mean, it's all the same things, but that Malice does, but like rank 4 instead of Link monsters, literally. I think this deck's combo is even more cringe than the Malice combo. The only difference is that this deck's grind game is worse than the Malice grind game. And this deck's non-engine is also worse than the Malice non-engine. Like, if you stop this deck with a Charmy or whatever, they're not going to Ash Impulse you on your turn. And they're also not going to activate Allure Chessy Cat to draw 6 cards and have all the non-engine in their deck in hand. So in that sense, this deck is a little worse than Malice, but the combo is actually even more cringe than the Malice combo. But yeah, like both of these decks, literally, like it took so much mental energy for me when I played. There was periods where I played against like literally 5 Onomat Ryziels back to back in the Duelist Cup around the 40,000-ish point mark, 45,000 points, and like it took so much mental energy for me to not stop right there. When that happened. The same is true for Malice. Like there was a period where I didn't play against a Draco Tail deck like 10 or 15 games streak. It was all Malice and Onomat and other shit. And I was so close to stopping. I stayed through it and I'm happy I did, but like they need to do something about these two decks. It's insane. It is insane what these decks do. And I genuinely, looking at my chat over the course of the weekend, and also like I cannot imagine that anyone enjoys playing against Onomat Ryziel. I cannot fathom a world where people genuinely enjoy playing against Onomat Ryziel. There's no shot that's a thing, right? That's not real. Nah, it is fun to play though. Yeah, but I think that is a mentality that we have to get away from. Genuinely, I think that mentality is a huge problem. I think like we have to get this idea out of our heads that Yu-Gi-Oh decks are fine as long as you are having fun when you play and do this shit to your opponent. Which I understand that. I understand where you're coming from. Genuinely, I know what you're saying. I see
Hard
what
to
you're
not
trying to say.
understand.
But like,
Blowing
this
out
is a game,
your opponent is
and
a
a
lot of
game
fun.
should aim to be fun for both people. And I know one person is going to lose, and for some people, losing always feels bad. But let me tell you, there is a massive difference what you're losing to. It makes so much of a difference. I can tell you, I played over 400 games this weekend, losing a Draco Tail mirror match that went on for like a couple of turns and had back and forth interaction and whatnot because my opponent outplayed or played well, and just it does not feel the same. It does not feel the same than when you get red rebooted by this deck and then you have like an effect Veiler in hand or whatever and a 5 mana and they just activate one Dodo Dodo Warrior and you cannot stop it and you just get destroyed. It is not the same. And I think that is important, that Yu-Gi-Oh should try to be fun for both players as much as possible.
Any game should.
And neither of these decks do this. And so I understand that people enjoy playing Malice. I understand that people enjoy playing Onomat, but you also have to understand that that these decks make the game actively less fun for at least 50% of the player base. Everyone who plays against it has a worse day because of it, and that is not good archetype design. Period. It's a 2-player game, so you should not be summoning 15 Exceed monsters on turn 1 and then turn skip the opponent. It should not be a thing. Period. There is no amount of enjoyment for one player that justifies that experience for the opponent. It just doesn't. So yeah. So I honestly I don't even want to predict what they're gonna do to these decks. I mean, the amount of hits that Malice has already received and still is one of the best decks in the format, if not the best deck in the format, is quite frankly disgusting. I mean, they banned Appaloosa, they limited Chessy Cat, they limited Dormouse, they banned Red Ransom, they limited the field spell, they limited Gold Sarcophagus, and the deck is still the best deck in the format. So they need to do something massive at this point, and I think at this point, like literally, maybe in the beginning people were making fun of me for complaining about Malice when it just came out, and when I said they shouldn't have made this deck, they were like, "Oh, let Malice have its time," and so like right now, no one, like literally no one, wants this deck to survive. Like I see so many people say like, "Oh, just get rid of this deck already. I'm tired." And that even includes OCG players. Like I saw some OCG Master Duel players, like I think shout out to Gimlet, who just posted, he was just crashing out about Malice all weekend on Twitter, and I was here for it. Like look, there's only so much of this type of shit that players can take, man. So yeah. Man of the Mark is annoying. Yeah, Man of the Mark is annoying, but Man of the Mark is also just like a response to this type of gameplay, I believe. Like I think this type of the dynamic of these decks is basically if you resolve one card, you instantly win the game. So I think it is no wonder that some people just decided to play decks that aim to not let the opponent play at all, right? Also, like that deck just wasn't good. I told you this beforehand. The deck was popular in the middle-ish ranks, but it's not good. It is simply not a good strategy. The deck literally cannot win if your opponent summons a monster onto the field that has some amount of attack points. Like it's just not a winning strategy. So obvious there was no one playing it in top 10, and I would be surprised if there's many that made it into the top 100. Because you just like your opponent summons one X Ryziel and you're playing Odeon, you literally explode. Yeah. It's just fancy stun basically. Odeon is literally has been downgraded to fancy stun because of decks like these as well though. Like Odeon itself is actually like designed much more like it could be played as like a mid-range combo-y deck, right? But that's just not the best version of it because these decks just exploit that too much. So yeah. Did you see Onomat Ryziel coming? I feel like it was quite unpopular before the Duelist Cup, maybe just people testing Dracotail. I didn't see it coming, but at the same time, my prep also wasn't super in depth, is what I realize now in hindsight. You know, I was just kind of like, you know, I'm gonna play Dracotail anyway, so let me just practice Dracotail, which I think is fine. But at the same time, I also like, I mean, even if I had known about this, I would not have played it. I would not have played this if I had known about it. No shot. I mean, I talked to Ryan the day before the Duelist Cup, and he said, "Yeah, I'm gonna play Onomat Ryziel," and I was like, "Okay, cool. I'm not going to do that." But yeah, I didn't know about the ins and outs and what exactly they were trying to achieve and stuff like that. But I knew Ryan was gonna play it. But like I wouldn't have played it anyways, no matter what. But yeah. So
unsatisfactory.
I mean, yeah. Next Forbidden Unlimited list, please. Murder Malice forever. Also get rid of Onomat Ryziel. I mean, we're gonna talk about this in a second as well, but like I already talked about how mad I was about what they did to Ryziel in general with like we talked about it, or I talked about it during the OCG ban list, where they've put Ice Ryziel to 1 now in the OCG. And I just think as someone who actually liked Ryziel when it came out, I think it's kind of sad what happened to it, because Ryziel was such a, like, I know people complained about it back then already, but realistically, from a competitive Yu-Gi-Oh perspective, Pure Ryziel was just a fine deck. Like, Pure Ryziel was completely fine. Complaining about Pure Ryziel in the beginning of when it came out is basically like complaining about Draco Tail right now, which is crazy to me. There is genuinely people out there, when these are the decks winning the Duelist Cup, under every single video where we discuss the format, people are complaining about Pure Draco Tail, which is insane to me. At this point, if you complain about Pure Draco Tail, you simply hate it when your opponent activates a good Yu-Gi-Oh card. So you just want to get free wins, basically. If you think Pure Draco Tail is too broken or badly designed, then you're not trying to play the game of Yu-Gi-Oh. You're just trying to, you hate when your opponent has a good card. So Pure Ryziel, when it came out, was completely fine. The deck had choke points because it didn't have access to Ryziel Cross before you resolved the Duo Drive. So the clear choke point against Ryziel was always, well, just hand trap the Duo Drive. If it's Ash or Imperm or Veiler or Ghost Ogre or whatever, just hit the Duo Drive and they will literally always go Detonator Pass. It was basically exclusively go Detonator Pass. Baguska was sometimes annoying. Honestly, Baguska was probably the most annoying thing about Pure Ryziel in the beginning. That was literally it. It was like sometimes they made Baguska instead of Detonator, and that was really annoying. But realistically, it was a fine deck. And then they made Star Ryziel, and all of a sudden, the choke point was eliminated. There was no more way to hold your hand traps for Duo Drive unless it was maybe specifically Imperm. But even Imperm, it was really annoying to hold Imperm for Duo Drive when Star was around, because Star would still guarantee cross, right? And then if you Imperm the Duo Drive, you're no longer just facing a detonator. You're facing a detonator with cross and a draw, which is significantly better. So the choke point was completely eliminated. It was no longer possible to actually hold your hand trap for a meaningful choke point, which basically meant that every single hand trap against Ryziel was just mini game now. You know, you can no longer escape the mini game against Ryziel. You just have to hand trap the first thing you see and hope they don't have an extender. And then you ash the Ice Ryziel and they special summon Sword Ryziel and you explode. Because they do everything anyways. So that was the first thing they severely messed up with Ryziel. And then the second thing was that they just added more rank 4 slop in future sets that just exploded the ceiling of this deck. Ryziel itself only summons a maximum of like 6 level 4 monsters, right? You have Ice Ryziel that summons a second copy. You have X from hand, Sword from hand, and then you have Node that revives one, which is 6 summons. Maybe sometimes you can arrange it so that you can summon Star Ryziel from hand, which is a 7th one, but 7 doesn't really give you another rank 4 unless you play Ryziel plugin. So you literally, that was the ceiling of Ryziel, which was fine. It was a fine ceiling. And then they added Onomat, which all of a sudden make that number triple of what you can summon in terms of level 4s. You know, you have one Dododo warrior in your hand. It doesn't matter. You get 15 more level 4s now for no reason. And if you don't draw the Ryziels, well, you make Infernal Flame Banshee to search X Ryziel. Or if you don't draw the Onomats, you can make like there's other, like I think people make some people made who is it called? Not Laplacian, the other one. Alimbertian to search some of the Onomats, or you can also like access it via, I think, Gaga Girl or whatever. Yeah, detachable material, add a Gaga Onomat or Xyz card from your deck to your hand. Yeah, there's like a bunch of ways to do it. So yeah, they literally and this is the story of 2025, is that they are making archetypes for the most part that are fine if they are contained to their own archetype, but they just screwed up how easy it is for people to just combine multiple archetypes together. Like you cannot design Ryziel, which was a completely functional deck on its own, and then just make another deck that just goes together with Ryziel and creates something that is so much more broken. You just can't do that, period. They have to stop doing that. And it's happening to so many decks right now. It's happening to Mitsurugi because Mitsurugi is being splashed in with everything. It's happening with Ryziel. It's even happening with Draco Tail. Even Draco Tail. They want to sell cards. Yeah, but like they're trying too hard. They're hurting themselves. People would have bought Draco Tail even if it was contained to Draco Tail. People like Mitsurugi even if it's just pure Mitsurugi. People like Yummy if it's pure Yummy. People like Ryziel if it's pure Ryziel. You don't have to do this. It's not a good argument. They are overpowering. I don't even know if it's on purpose. I don't even know if they see all this coming, because honestly, the idea that they see a deck like this coming and release it anyways is even more scary. The idea that someone there was aware of what Ryziel Onomat is capable of doing and they still did it is insane to me. They saw it with Adignister. Yeah, I think they're pushing it too hard. Like making, like, people already bought Malice. People already wanted Malice cards before they made Backup Adignister, Wizard Adignister, and Allied Code Talker, right? Malice was already a sought after tier 1 deck before those cards. They did not have to make those cards to make the deck meta. It was already meta. Ryziel was already meta before Onomat. Draco Tail is already meta before we get before we get Spenta, before we get whatever the Albaz support, the branded stuff that just goes into Draco Tail slop now. Mitsurugi Mitsurugi is also a completely fine deck on its own. I played pure Mitsurugi at Nationals. It was part of the meta. It was playable. I liked it. All of these decks are completely fine if they just left them within their own archetype. Nothing here needed that support. They are just overpower creeping for no real reason. It's not a justification for it. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. And so if there's anything to take away from this, it's that archetype design in 2025 has improved, which you might be surprised that that's a positive takeaway. But I do think if you look at 2024, you know, Tenpai, Snake Eye, Yubel, Malice, if you look at the archetypes in 2025 in comparison, you know, Yami, Mitsurugi, Draco Tail, and so on, like there's a lot more, and even K9, there's a lot of decks that if they were played as the pure version, they would be completely fine and people would love all of them. But unfortunately, no one plays them pure, or only very few people are incentivized to play them pure, because everyone is incentivized to just splash them together and create something that's broken. Same for Vanquish Soul. Yeah, Vanquish Soul didn't need a K9 to be viable, you know. They had to hit Vanquish Soul because they made K9. Imagine that. It's so stupid. So like that's the takeaway basically, is like, make the archetypes, keep doing what you're doing with the archetype designs, but just put locks on them. Just make sure you cannot just splash two random archetypes that have nothing to do with each other into the same deck and just create something that's more powerful than anything should ever be. So yeah. So like combining archetypes is fun in the beginning when you figure out like a combination. But at this point, it has nothing to do with creativity anymore to put Ryziel cards with Onomat cards, because they're made for each other anyways. It's like pretending to be smart and creative when you put Sword Soul cards with Tenny cards. Like, bro, no, they are designed to be together. Like it's not creativity when you put those two together. It's like, no, you just put like two Lego bricks on top of each other. Sick, good job. It's not meant to be that way. What about Mitsuyami? Yeah, what part of Mitsuyami is creative now? Like it was creative in the beginning and now it's just annoying. Phantom Revenge has locks, and yeah, I mean that's the problem, right? Like people say like, oh, but if you put locks on cards, then they're just going to be bad, which is only true. Hear me out. This is only true because they make other decks that don't have locks. So if they were consistent in their archetype design, then this wouldn't be a problem. Because, of course, when you have two archetypes that are designed at relatively similar power level, and the one has locks on it that stops it from being splashed with other stuff or generic extra deck monsters, and the other one has a lock on it that prevents you from doing that, then of course you're going to play the one that has less restrictions and is more broken because of that, right? But if they were consistent with their design, then we wouldn't have this problem. This is a problem that they made because they made archetypes without locks. Those archetypes are more tempting. That's why people choose them, you know? That is why certain decks fall behind other decks, is because it's not because the other ones are worse, it's just because the other ones are the better ones are better for no reason, and it's unreasonable, right? So yeah. So I think we just have to get rid of these cards, and that's the reason why I was so like in the middle of the OCG ban list thing, which I want to talk about in a second again as well. But like when I looked at the hits to Ryzeal, Yummy, Draco Tail that happened here, it got me thinking, and I kind of yapped about that a little bit in my OCG ban list reaction. That like I think it's actually, these are good hits, but I think it's kind of sad that they were necessary, right? Like they are just basically artificially they created these problems themselves, right? Like none of these cards in a vacuum is so broken that it needs to be hit if people just played the pure decks. The reason why these cards are so broken is because they have no locks attached to them that actually matter, right? Like this thing locks you into rank 4s in a deck that only wants to summon rank 4s. This thing locks you into fusion for the rest of the turn in a deck that has no problem with that. And I mean, this has no locks on it anywhere. So like, they are deserved hits, but they wouldn't be necessary if they locked you properly. If like Ice Ryzeal, first of all, it's crazy that it locks you on the summon from hand. That is, of course, what I meant. But like, if the fact that this doesn't lock you on normal summon is honestly something that like insane to me. Which is also, by the way, that little quirk, that Ice Ryzeal quirk, that Ice Ryzeal doesn't lock you on its good effect, but rather on its bad effect. That is single-handedly responsible for the dominance of Fiendsmith Mitsurugi over of Fiendsmith Ryzeal over Pure Ryzeal in the TCG. That is the only reason, you know, that was a thing. Is because you could normal summon Ice and do full Fiendsmith combo after. For no reason. So yeah. Anyways, we're drifting away from the original discussion. The OCG ban list that we're going to talk about in a second as well did some pretty good steps in general for Yu-Gi-Oh! But like in Master Duel specifically, I would like some of those changes adapted. Of course, they started hitting Max C Ash called by in the OCG, which is good. But they need to do something. I don't care what they do for Malice, but I think it might be time for Whitebinder. It's definitely, it's been time for so long for Link Decoder and Splash Mage. Like I don't even want to mention these anymore. Those have to go honestly independently of Malice. Splash Mage and Link Decoder probably have to go. But like I think it might be Whitebinder or ban a main deck name time, honestly. It might just be I think it's clear that you have to ban another Malice card in order to achieve this. You cannot hit consistency in a deck that is full of searchers and slop potential. There is literally a reinforcement of the army type card for Cybers in Signet Mining, and they're not playing it. There's this card that searches I Meet You. There is Cybers Wicked that searches by extension any Malice name, because you can search backup Ad Ignister and then backup searches any Malice. So as long as you don't ban Malice cards, they will find ways to search the Malice cards. Like, once again, it is a problem that they created by giving these decks so many tools. But like, even if you limit March Hare and limit White Rabbit and limit that's all the Malice cards in the main deck, like, people will find ways to search them. People will just activate Circular, and Circular gives you Wicked, and Wicked gives you Backup, and Backup gives you Dormouse. Like, there's no way to prevent it. There's no way to prevent Cyber Slop from happening if you don't ban the card that they're searching for. They still have Dormouse every single game, even though it's limited. They have Chessy Cat every single game, even though it's limited. So, like, there's no point. There's literally no point. So, yeah. Get rid of Malice and get rid of Onomat. Admit your mistakes, get rid of them. It's time. That's all I have to say after the Duelist Cup. I got my first national and WCQ tops with Malice, and I really love the deck, but at this point I also have to say that the deck has been around too much. I mean, yes and no, because what you're leaning towards now, or what your argument says, is like that it's been around for too long. And I also don't agree with that. I think my point has always been the same with Malice, and that is unfortunately what I talked about earlier, is that Malice is just inherently not fun to play against. And I think I understand that you love the deck. I understand that you like playing with the deck, and that's fine. And I know that my perspective here is heavily subjective, but I also think that I'm not alone with that perspective. I think the majority of people agree with this, and that is that these types of decks are not fun to play against. And I think for that, it's like, of course, at the point where they've printed it, I think your argument makes sense. It's like, okay, these cards are out now, so of course they're not going to ban them right away because they want people to get their time in with these cards. But basically what I'm leaning towards is like, I want the message to be like, please don't make archetypes like this in the future, right? Because it makes the game less enjoyable for a lot of people if you have to play against this stuff over and over and over again. And so once it's been made, I guess, sure, we can start measuring the time of how long it can be there, and eventually it has to go. Fair enough. That point I do agree with. But it's not like the kind of logic that I like to use when I talk about card design. You know, I guess that is in some ways kind of pointless, is like saying like, because saying the card shouldn't have been printed is kind of pointless when it's obviously been printed, right? So you might say like, oh, well, that's not very helpful to say like you shouldn't have done this if they've already done it. But I do think that that sort of feedback needs to be given at some point if they want to improve their decisions in the future. I do think there needs to be this sort of sentiment. If you want things to change, I guess you need to give them feedback on what you liked and what you didn't like. So that's what I'm trying to do. I still can't believe they released Ignis' report made for the deck while Malice was already meta. Yeah, that sort of stuff is unfortunate, and I do think that sometimes this is a result of the I think the fact is that, or I think that they probably have this sort of stuff lined up way in advance. I think that Alliance Insight cards were probably already designed and set in stone before Malice even came out. And realistically, I think this is a theory. I don't know this for sure, but maybe they overpower stuff on purpose. But I think the reality is sometimes they don't know exactly how powerful stuff is, and then they make more support for it just to make sure it's going to be good. It's like with Malice, it's like, okay, they make Malice and they're like, we want this deck to be good, so we're giving them good effects. And then to make sure it really is good, we're making some Ignis support in the next set to also, go on top of it, just in case it doesn't quite go as well as they think, right? And then as a result of this, because I can't imagine that they always understand the full extent of how powerful a deck is. Like sometimes, I'm pretty sure sometimes a deck comes out and then the entire Yu-Gi-Oh community gets their hands on it, and there's so much more testing and playing being done with it than they could ever do in the development process, because there's so many people, you know, out here that play with these cards and find the perfect build and optimize everything and so on, and then the deck ends up being way more powerful than it was supposed to be, I think. So I guess that's kind of the problem. If I had to pinpoint it, I think that's kind of what's going on. Is like they are overtuning cards on purpose because they want to make sure archetypes are good and desirable, and then they end up just like overshooting the goal too often with this type of stuff. But yeah. But I do think like Draco Tail, for example, Draco Tail is a perfect example of the opposite also being completely fine, right? Like no one thinks Draco Tail is too weak. Draco Tail, at least from what I'm seeing, is a super successful archetype. You know, it's won YCSs. People love it. The design is great. It's not overtuned. And there's still a crazy amount of demand for it. You know, people love Draco Tail. And it's not this overtuned combo slop that turns the game into a single player game for the person that's pulling off the combos, right? So like it's basically proof that this is not necessary, right? This is not it's not necessary for people to enjoy an archetype. Is that they keep releasing more and more and more broken archetypes or support for archetypes. So yeah. What do you think of Farfa's argument that the main anime decks should always be meta? I mean, like, does he mean like Blue Eyes and stuff? Like Dark Magician should always be an option, and Blue Eyes should always be an option, or whatever? Yes. I wouldn't hate that. I mean, look, I don't care that much personally about anime archetypes. I would say if the play style of the deck is cool, then I would say yes. I always base this sort of stuff off of, do I like the way the deck plays? If the deck is boring and not fun to play or play against, then I think it's bad. If it's good for the game, if it's healthy gameplay, then sure, why not? Right? And so I guess that's what it would depend on. It's all fun and games until they make anime decks as strong as Yubel. See, I don't have a problem with the deck being strong. I think it's more about the general type of gameplay that it provides. And Yubel is the exact same shit. You resolve one card, you win the game, there's no question asked. Basically, that is the problem with Yubel.
Oh no, wait, I didn't mean to
And also the
discard.
lack of proper locks.
Oh, whatever.
It was not just Yubel that was the problem. If you were contained to the Yubel cards, then it would probably be fine. But the deck went through full Fiendsmith combo.
I was auto-brained. I thought there was the boss monster that lets them attack another. That lets them Larig attack twice.
None of that stuff locked you into Fiend. It did full Fiendsmith, full Unchained, full Yubel combo, and summoned Varudras and SP Little Knight and or whatever it wanted. Like that is not, and Caesar and everything like that is not. It's just the it's once again. It's the same problem, just a year earlier, Appaloosa as well. It's just the same problem, but a year earlier, where like if stuff gets combined too much with other things, then it reaches a point where people don't enjoy playing against it anymore. So yeah, that's that. All right. Which I think is a decent segue to talking about the OCG ban list a little bit more. I mean, I've already uploaded my initial reaction. This is going to be more of a discussion on why this is important, I think. If you want my initial reaction to this, where I talked about some of these things that we also just started talking about a little bit, it is on the Plus channel on YouTube. You can go !YouTube if you want to check that out. But So I did kind of want to reiterate over this because people, I think some people might wonder why I think this is important, why I make such a big deal out of this ban list in particular, and also OCG ban list in general. Like, why do I always look at these and why do I talk about them so much? I think this matters a lot because the OCG is basically the origin of Yu-Gi-Oh, right? Like I do think the TCG like TCG Konami has some say in when cards are designed. I'm sure they're able to give their feedback and everything, but I think the majority of card design and archetype design and stuff and core booster set designs and stuff like that, I think that is managed by the OCG. I think the OCG does the majority of this, and the OCG has the major say in all of this. At least that's what I feel like it is. Of course, TCG gets to do their own ban list, which is good, but we still basically get all the cards from the OCG, right? Like, and sometimes the TCG creates their own archetypes, which is also cool sometimes. But the majority, like 99% of cards, are from the OCG, and that lays the groundwork. It's basically the basics of Yu-Gi-Oh! They come from the OCG. And even if we use a different ban list, when cards come out, when cards release, they are not on the ban list yet, you know? And if we get an OCG archetype that is designed with OCG philosophy and OCG ban list in mind, then we will get that archetype at full power in the TCG. And that in the past has often turned out to be a problem. I mean, one of my favorite examples for this, I guess, is Super Heavy Samurai still, even though that's like 2 years ago at this point. Like Super Heavy Samurai was clearly designed. I think it's very obvious that Super Heavy Samurai was designed
On last
with
game,
the
since I
OCG in
said
mind, because
first to
at the
3.
time Max C was at 3.
This
And the
is
whole
a
gimmick of
this
Super
is
Heavy
a really
Samurai
close
was, well,
deck.
you can't play spell
Although it
cards,
kind
so
of,
you can't
I
play Called
think,
by the
just
Grave,
shows
which I
both
think
of
was
these are
also still
equally
at 2
mid.
back then. So
Honestly,
it was like, okay, well, this
we'll have
deck
to
is a
see when
super
I finally
powerful
decide to
combo
test
deck,
this on
but
other decks.
you can't play Called by to negate your opponent's hand traps. You can't play Called by specifically to negate Max C. So statistically, the deck is weaker into Max C. So that, I think that was the justification to make Super Heavy
Good
Samurai,
hands
which
all around.
fundamentally I disagreed with it back in the day because the gameplay the deck offered was terrible and so on. But from a win rate perspective, I guess that's fair enough. You know, can't play Called by, can't play Crossout, so it dies to some hand traps. It did get Gamma back then at, I think, still at 3. But basically what I'm trying to say with this is like that whole philosophy completely went up in flames when the deck came to the TCG because we didn't have Max C. So the fact that they didn't have Called by didn't matter as much. For us, it was just like, well, you better have Droll Lockbird because there was no Charmy at the time. And so if we didn't have Droll in hand, we died to Super Heavy Samurai, pretty much. I mean, people obviously tried to play stuff like Ghost Ogre for Wakaushi, but it wasn't really a thing. Like, the deck was super annoying. And so they hit it on the TCG ban list really quick, which I think is what gave it away, that was definitely an OCG design with that philosophy in mind. I think the fact that the TCG handled Super Heavy Samurai so quickly was both very good and also a clear indicator of that deck was not designed for the TCG in mind, right? So the OCG moving in the right direction is important because it means that in the future they will have to design archetypes better to begin with. You know, the less copies of Max C there are, the less they can use this stupid argument of, well, Max C is in the game, so let's design more broken and broken combo decks. So Max C going to 1 is a big step. And honestly, Max C going from 2 to 1 is a bigger step than Max C going from 3 to 2. Because, of course, it going from 3 to 2 was the first step, but it going from 2 to 1 statistically is a bigger step. And I think that is huge. I mean, no one is going to enjoy playing with 1 Max C. People don't enjoy playing with 2 Maxis. People don't enjoy playing with 3 Maxis. So I'm happy that it's going down, as well as Called by the Grave, as well as Ash Blossom, actually. A lot of the cards that are basically associated with the mini game. And as much as you might think the hand trap maxi mini game is a funny meme in Master Duel or whatever, it is not. It is a genuine problem for the gameplay loop of Yu-Gi-Oh! That like Maxi exists to counter combo decks, and then Called By and Ash Blossom exists to counter Maxi, and that's just like this vicious cycle of variants and literally no skill involved, and the gameplay that stems from this entire thing is just not interesting and not fun to begin with, because if you play against a combo deck and you have Maxi in hand, it's not going to be a fun game. Probably for both players, but definitely not for one of you, because either you Maxi your opponent and your opponent's deck explodes because Maxi resolved, or your opponent ashes or Called Bys your Maxi and then you explode because your opponent's deck is way too broken. And so getting rid of all things minigame related in the OCG means they will have to design decks more carefully in the future. They just have to. Otherwise, you know, people are not going to enjoy the archetypes, and that's a problem. So yeah, that's why I think this is such a big ban list, and why I mean, it's not just Maxi to 1. There's a lot of other things here that are going the right way. You know, they're hitting generic extra deck stuff.
Really trapped at the bottom,
Moon, Splash Mage, Baguska. They're hitting Called By. They're hitting Ash Blossom. Dominus Impulse, I think, is also a pretty good hit. So this is a really good OCG ban list, and I think it matters a lot. And I was really happy. It really cheered me up over the course of the weekend. I looked at it in the middle of the Duelist Cup, and I was like, yeah, that's huge. And it did cheer me up over the course of the weekend. So that was cool. Being sacked with a 1-of Maxi will tilt me to the end of the moon, to be honest. I mean, yeah, there is something about 1-ofs feeling sacky that makes it feel bad to lose against, of course, which is why it should be banned. But still, like, if you think about it logically for 1 second, would you rather play against someone with 1 Maxi in their deck or 2? It's like, yeah, okay, sure, the 1-of feels bad because then they drew the 1-of, but like you would still rather play against someone who only has 1 in their deck, because then the chance for it to happen is smaller. Like, I know some of you are going to say 0 because that's technically the real answer, even though it's not the question I asked. So yeah. Travis, thank you for the 19 months. Welcome back. If it goes to 1 in Master Duel, do you think any team for Worlds ever picks it? Ooh, that's an interesting question. Yeah, I don't know, actually. I don't know. So like it might create this like super weird dynamic where it is definitely the best card in the game, right? But it is just a 1-of, so even if you designate it as your shared card, then you don't get a lot of it's very inefficient, right? It's very, very inefficient. Hualos is more important. Well, you don't have just 1 shared card, you know, maybe you do Fuva Ash and Maxi. Yeah. I could see it could still be Fuva Ash Maxi. I could still see it. Didn't people still pick Called By even at 1? I think some did. But not everyone, definitely. I think it was more of the exception than the norm to pick Called By. But I do think Called By was at 2. Oh, it was at 2, right? Yeah. And even then, it wasn't like everywhere. But yeah. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I don't know. I think I think some people would still pick it at 1, honestly. I would still consider it. If Fuva didn't exist, would you share Maxi counters? No. Like, I mean, you could still share Ash if you think it's a good hand trap in the format, which, spoilers, it's not. Ash Blossom is not a really good hand trap at the moment. It's like going second, you draw Ash Blossom. Usually it feels terrible. So if without Max C, or like, yeah, without Max C, and if Fuva didn't exist, I think people wouldn't share Ash Blossom. At least not nearly, like not 100% of people at Worlds. It would be way lower. Like I think if they ban Max C, I think the play rate of Ash Blossom goes down in Master Duel. And if Fuva didn't exist, or if there's a format without Fuva in it, then people might just not play Ash. But yeah. I saw this picture earlier, which I thought was funny. Someone keeps updating this screenshot of full power Ishizu tier every time a ban list hits one of these cards. And we have now reached a point where in the best deck of
I'm not gonna be
2022,
able to
the
get
amount of cards
the
that are
thingy
still
with her,
legal in
but
Yu-Gi-Oh! Are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 21, 2, 26. 26 cards are still legal out of 55. Less than half now. It is now less than half of the deck that is legal to play. Yeah, they lost Baguska and another Max C on this ban list. Terra is also banned. In Master Duel, Terra is banned and Perlo Rhino is banned. But we also have Kit Kalos, but no Merly. And also we have 3 Orange Light and 2 Maxis. Yeah, this is not Master Duel, this is OCG. But yeah. I think the Baguska is a very interesting one for me because I think it's so odd that TCG still has Baguska. Isn't that really weird? Every time the OCG bans a floodgate before the TCG, you know something's weird. It's really awkward. Like out of all the formats to still keep Baguska around so hard, why is it TCG? Is Baguska that bad when most decks can just use SP to out it? It is usually not as simple as just use SP to out it though. Because in order to make
really
SP, you have to summon 2 monsters,
simple.
and one of them needs to be from the extra deck, and you have to do all that under Baguska, and you also have to make it so that after you go SP on Baguska, you don't just pass the turn, so you kind of have to keep playing. And it's really not that simple. And any deck that doesn't get to a very easy and free SP Little Knight just dies to Baguska. So it is true that Baguska is like basically there is a few things about Baguska that are better than other floodgates, and then there's one thing in particular about Baguska that is a lot worse, which is also an important principle to understand, and that is that Baguska is a little bit easier to out and not as broken as something like, I don't know, There Can Be Only One, or Macrocosmos or something. The problem is that it's in your extra deck. So you pick when to summon it, and you can always do it. It's not a matter of, well, it's not going to happen every game because they might just not draw it. Baguska is always available to you. So even if a decent amount of your hands can out a Baguska, there is still going to be a large portion of hands that can't, and it's always going to be available for you in those games, basically. So I think it's really, I think that's a problem that basically it multiplies the problem of Baguska as a card. Like if Baguska was somehow like a main deck monster that you had to like summon somehow, or I don't know, if there was a similarly working like trap card, people probably wouldn't play it. I think the one that's the most comparable, I guess, is like Lose One Turn, and you don't really see Lose One Turn seeing play. But that's because it's not always accessible. If you could access a Lose One Turn from your extra deck, then everyone would do it, and it would be really problematic. So that is also something to consider when you look at like the power level of a card. Is like, well, do I have to draw this, or can I just summon it from my extra deck whenever I want? It's like Nightmare Griffin as well. Nightmare Griffin on a trap card, people wouldn't play it. But Nightmare Griffin generic from the extra deck, you will definitely find decks that'll do it, and it's really annoying. Right? So that's that. Okay. There's been another ban list. Asian English January 2026 Forbidden Limited list. This is like kind of a wild format. Asian English. They had a lot of cards like legal at 3 that were kind of crazy. We're gonna see on this ban list. They banned nothing. The limits are also kind of wild. It's Cupsy Yummy from 3-1, Jokel from 3-1, March Hare from 3-1, White Rabbit from 3-1, Arclight from 3-1, K2 Draco Tail from 3-1, Malice in Underground. Dude, Malice was at an obscene power level here. Malice in Underground 3-1, Obedience School 3-1, Pre-Prep 3-1, Cozen Match and Rivalry were both at 3. So at this format is wild. Yeah. A lot of it, oddly, with the exception of Cupsy Yummy, a lot of it is just basically taking hits from the OCG and also applying it to Asian English format. At the same time, I think the OCG also hit Malice in a different way. I think Malice in the OCG actually has 3 Field Spell, 3 Rabbit, and 3 March Hare. So it's actually quite different. Yeah. Semi-limit, Ash Blossom, Ice Ryzeal, Izuna, Max C, Raisin, and Snatchy. The format is only 2 years old. Yeah, it's a weird one. I don't see that much about it as well. Like, I don't see as much of like tournament reports or metagame reports from Asian English format. I know there's some countries. I talked to one of the world's competitors this year who was I think from Singapore. I'm pretty sure Singapore. And I think in Singapore they play both formats. Like, there's some formats that use OCG and some formats that use Asian English format. Shane, yeah. They have to adjust and kind of play both formats if you want to maximize your chances to go to Worlds. Like, there's some tournaments, like I think they have to collect points over the course of the year to qualify for like other tournaments that then qualify you for like the Asian qualifier for Worlds. And like some of them are in OCG format and some of them are in Asian English format. So he had to like kind of keep up with both. So he told me a little bit about it, but he also said the Asian English format is like the Wild West. And like it had 3 maxis. I'm pretty sure it has 3 gammas as well. I don't know if or maybe they hit gamma afterwards, but I think he told me about like the gamma being at 3 and so on. So yeah, Alka-Fibrax is legal. Yeah, there's a lot of things going on in Asian English format, but I guess all things considered, without being too familiar with the format, it looks like things are moving in the right direction here. I mean, Maxi and Ash going to 2 is good. A lot of these hits are justified. Gozen and Rivalry, good riddance. So yeah. Samorg is about to release 2. What, the Link, the Wind Link 3? Yeah, that's another thing about this format that makes it really hard for me to judge, is that the release schedule is like super different. Because they're kind of like they started super, I think just 2 years ago or something, you said, and then they're just like gradually adding cards from whenever. It's kind of like Master Duel, but even more random release order, I guess. There's a lot of old cards that they don't even have. Yeah. Did you watch this interview with Shane? I saw it when it came out. Yeah, I watched it. I don't remember much from it though. It's been a while. All right. There's one other thing I wanted to bring to your attention that was posted yesterday, and I posted about it on Twitter already, but I think this is honestly some of my favorite news that happened this month or this weekend, basically. I mean, last weekend was full of announcements, But there's one thing that maybe flew under the radar a little bit, but I want to put some emphasis on it because I think this is my favorite announcement, actually. This is the Chaos Origins product configuration for the OCG, which sounds like the least exciting thing you've ever heard about. But there's one small thing here. Basically, it announces Chaos Origins as the next core booster set, and they're giving you the specifications of what's going to be in this box. And this is for the OCG. I want to preface this by saying this is for the OCG, but it's telling you, okay, you know, it's going to be 80 cards in the pack, which is normal. That is all core booster sets in the OCG. And then for the TCG, they add 20 more, which are usually split between imports and TCG exclusives. So 80 new cards split into 4 ultimates, 8 ultras, 10 supers, 18 rares, 40 normals. And 24 cards can be obtained in Prismatic Secret, 30 cards come in Secret Rare, 4 of the Prismatic Secret Rares come in overframe card artwork. And this little sentence here made me really happy. And let me tell you why. Because, of course, we've been reacting to the overframe cards. We've been reacting to these kind of cards. It's been all over the Yu-Gi-Oh world on last weekend, right? Like on the internet. It was everywhere. And everyone loves these, with very, very few exceptions. The feedback I saw on these cards has been insane. It's come from everywhere. You know, I've heard from players, I've heard from collectors, I've heard from everywhere that this rarity is looking nice. And of course, I agree. I think it's awesome. And this is, in my opinion, a very important step for Yu-Gi-Oh! Not just because these cards are awesome, but because Yu-Gi-Oh! Actually does struggle at the moment with the product not being as desirable to open. You know, there is not as much collectability in Yu-Gi-Oh! At the moment. As a result of that, there's not as many people that just open up boxes because it's fun to open, because they're chasing for something and whatever. And that means that a lot of the value in Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards is just within the playable secret rares, right? And that is a problem because that is what's keeping Yu-Gi-Oh! From being super affordable. Now, I will say they've done a lot in that direction this year with good reprints and stuff like that, but there's only so much that reprints can achieve because reprints are always late to the party. If you're trying to play the newest good deck, you're going to need those Marshmallow Yummies immediately, not when they're reprinted, right? And so if Marshmallow Yummy is the only chase card in the set, that is a problem because it's a secret rare. And I mean, there needs to be chase cards, so it's understandable that it's a secret rare. But if it's the only real chase card, then Yummy is going to be pretty expensive to play, right? So the introduction of collectible cards that can act like chase cards is important and huge for Yu-Gi-Oh! And so far, before this announcement, we only knew that this was going to happen in the Rarity Collection, right? But this is, and I said this in my initial reaction to these cards, is I said this needs to happen in core booster sets. If this doesn't happen in core booster sets, this is cool and nice and beautiful, but it doesn't actually solve one of Yu-Gi-Oh's problems, which is collectability and core sets being bad to open. This confirms that it's happening in core booster sets in the OCG. And this doesn't guarantee that it's going to happen in the TCG as well, but it makes it likely, I think. I think this is something, this is another step towards, like, hopefully this happens in TCG as well. And it's not just that. It is, if I understand this correctly, 4 of the 14 ultra rare cards can appear with a new illustration. Does this mean we're getting alternate artworks as well? Does this mean we're getting alternate artworks in core booster sets immediately, not like 2 years later in some rarity collection? Because that's another big news. Right? Expansion pack only? Expansion pack, 15 cards, 1 card per pack, 14 ultra rares. No. Okay. The box bonus plus 1. This is like a box topper, right? This is a box topper they get in the OCG where it's like you get the packs and then you have one other, like, one extra thingy. Okay. I mean, I guess the good thing about this is still like the alt arts are gonna be available technically immediately when the card comes out, right? So hopefully, I mean, they could add this to our product as well somehow. But like, I think that the main news is that like we're getting overframe cards, in the initial core booster set, which I think is huge. I mean, just imagine if like, imagine any set right from this year that was like let's just look at Doom of Dimensions, right, where it's like, okay, you know, it has Marshmallow Yummy and whatnot, but like it's not worth
I definitely do
opening at the
think
moment. I
Wish
think
In
just
is
if
the
you look
biggest
at just
problem
like
here. Wish In is
value of
primarily
it,
an
but
aggressive
there's just
card.
no real thing to chase for, you know.
I
But
just
if you
need more
had
ways to
4
draw
overframe cards
for
of some of the
cost
best cards in the
to pay
set,
for
I
Water
think
Phantom
that alone
Princess's
would
cost.
make it like chaseable,
Because
you
like
know, like the feeling of
depending on
opening
the
a
matchup,
box when
especially
you
if
know
I'm up
like
against
every
white,
like
as
1
this
in
deck
12
clearly
boxes or
showcases, I'm
whatever,
not
like
gonna be
1
able
per
to use
case
this all the
could
time.
have a full art card. If you have the chance of hitting it big, right, I think that